National Championship Monday, live right here on the early line on Sports Grid. A 1 versus 1. Here's what is at stake tonight in Phoenix, Arizona. Technically Glendale, Arizona, but they brand it as Phoenix, so we say Phoenix. Connecticut looking for its second consecutive national championship. The Huskies looking to go back-to-back in men's college basketball at the D1 level for the first time since Florida accomplished that feat 2006 and 2007. And frankly, with UConn's dominance, I'm not sure anybody's stopping them, not even a fellow 1 seed in Purdue. The Boilermakers in the Final Four for the first time since 1980. Now, one step further into a national championship. It's the second time in program history and the first since 1969. But you can see what the odds makers expect. Because even when you give Connecticut its best shot, the Huskies still win by double digits and at least 13 points. UConn, 6.5-point favorite for tonight's national title game. The over-under, 145.5. DRS, what do you make of the line? 6.5 points in favor of Connecticut. What does it say about the expected outcome of the national championship game on this Monday evening?
That UConn's a comfortable favorite. UConn was a comfortable favorite last year against San Diego State. I think that line was a little bit higher, around that 8.5 number, but they easily surpassed that and hammered San Diego State. Now, having said that, UConn certainly was a wagon last year. San Diego State a little bit of a surprise, winding up in the Final Four in the final, and they dispatched them here. Purdue's not really on that type of level, and they're actually on a level higher because why? Well, Zach Eady's the National Player of the Year, which will be back-to-back times, and you can always rely on a big inside guy to get to the free throw line or score easy baskets and open up your three-point shooting, which has been tremendous this year. But sometimes when you take a look at styles that make fights, and you might have taken a look at that game on Saturday night and said, man, boy, NC State probably would play anybody but Purdue tonight because they have a giant, and we just can't match up with that size. Well, now UConn does have a giant to match up with a giant, and we'll see how that one goes. But particularly, they're not one-shot ponies over here. You're taking a look at Purdue, who's third most efficient offense in the country. Why? Because Zach Eady opens everything up. But you take a look at UConn, they're number 1 overall. So you're not even getting a disadvantage. Well, Purdue's really good on offense. And Connecticut just plays really good defense. It's not the case. But here's the key ingredient, Ben, when you take a look at it. We know UConn's defense is good. Take a look at the 2-point field goal percentage. Number 2 in the country at defending inside of the arc, which means Donovan Klingon has been dominant all season long. If he can neutralize Zach Eady, and I'm not talking about Ben Eady winds up with 12 points and 5 rebounds. Eady just doesn't get to his 26 and 16. They should be able to win this game. And I do believe Klingon is good enough to hold up against Eady, where I'm not saying he's going to shut him down, but he is going to be able to really affect what Purdue wants to do on offense, and I think that's going to be enough. So for me, it seems to be a UConn game just for the simple fact that Klingon is probably the best matchup that Eady is going to get for the entire season, and it comes in the national championship game.
All right, so let's talk about this, right? Because I said it in our opening hour as we wrapped up our Final Four recap. We have said all along, as Connecticut has continued its dominance and somehow, some way, even looked more dominant this year than they did last year in the NCAA tournament. 11 wins over the span of the last 2 big dances, 11 covers, a perfect 11-0 against the spread, covering by an average margin of 13 points per game. The average margin of victory is 22.3 points per game. They have lost 1 non-conference game in their last 32 over the past 2 seasons. That was on the road in the fog against KU. In all 31 of those non-con victories have been by double digits. We have said, is there a team in the rest of the field that remains in this bracket that can knock off UConn, that would have the upper hand? There is not. And I've been on as high on Purdue all year long. I've had a national championship ticket on the Boilermakers since early February. I truly believe, not just because of the trend of a 16 upsetting a 1 and then a 1 getting to a national championship game, but that this Purdue team, this group in West Lafayette, would change the entirety of the conversation around a proud basketball program that had struggled on the most significant stages for 40 years. And they have done exactly that. But when you face off against this UConn team, is there a matchup advantage? I don't think so. You got Zach Eady, the guy that's won a National Player of the Year award for 2 consecutive years for the first time in more than 4 decades since Ralph Sampson did so in the 80s at Virginia. Okay, Donovan Klingon is on the other side. The two best bigs in all of college basketball face off tonight. Okay, Purdue's the second best three-point shooting team in the country, nearly 41% from deep. UConn doesn't even let you shoot the three. Only 33.4% of their opposition's field goal attempts this year have come from deep. How difficult is that? Ask Alabama, who shot better than 47% from three and lost by 14 points. I really just mean this, Donnie. I am not sure there is a team that can knock off UConn. Purdue is going to be their best test. And the Boilermakers, I think, have the best opportunity even covering a number against UConn. But even when you give the Huskies their best shot, they still end up winning by double digits. I would not be surprised to see UConn win its second consecutive national championship. And even if the game feels like it could turn at any single moment over the 40-minute regulation tonight in Phoenix, UConn still, somehow, some way, when the clocks hit zero, not only cut down the nets as a champion, but cover a 6.5-point spread.
I'm with you on that, too. And let's also take a look at why Purdue is such a great three-point shooting team. Look, every team has usually great three-point shooters. It's just imagine if you're getting good looks or you're not getting good looks. We can all force three-point shots if that's just in our tempo, because Alabama's got the play setups to do that on a game-in basis. But you're looking at Purdue. Did you watch that game on Saturday? If you never saw Purdue play, did you watch a game Saturday night where they made 40% of the three-point shots? How many of those were guys just perched up at the three-point line, wide open look, set their feet, release rotation, and splash? You don't get that against Connecticut. Now, here's the reason why, because if you're saying like, wow, I see that percentage that Purdue shoots. Do you see what Alabama did? If Purdue can do that and have their inside game, they can give Connecticut problems. I agree with that. But you know what every single does, maybe outside of UConn here? The minute the ball goes down the Eady, it's not one-on-one play. It's collapsing on Eady with 2 and 3 guys, which means Eady picks the basketball up, fires it back line with a guy wide open. If Connecticut can play more one-on-one basketball against Zach Eady, those three-point lanes aren't there just to pass out wide open looks.
For sure.
That's what makes it so intriguing. And back to your point with Purdue. If Purdue lines up in the games and gets like 15 points, that's not to say, oh, well, Purdue, a really overrated team. Like, no, they were playing UConn, one of the best teams we've seen for the past 2 decades in college basketball that's about to do a repeat here.
Yep.
They're really good at this year. Now, if Purdue lines against NC State in the final, and NC State played well and beat Purdue, then we'd have an issue with it. No shame in their game. It's going to be a great game to watch it play out tonight, but we're finally looking at, instead of going up against, hey, Purdue's got a great matchup. This is the worst matchup Purdue could have had, but quite frankly, Connecticut is the worst matchup anybody can have in college basketball. So we're not, reinventing the wheel here, Ben.
Absolutely so. It is 1 versus 1. It is a game that when the bracket was revealed and you saw Connecticut in the East region on one side and Purdue one line in the Midwest region on the other side of the bracket, it felt like we could very well get this game. And we have. And it's still a 6.5-point spread. So how about the guys orchestrating the offense? If we looked at the big men, right? 24.5 for Zach Eady. His points prop, 12.5 rebounds. Donovan Klingon, I think you're getting some depressed numbers at 13.5 and 7.5. Klingon had 22 in the Elite 8 against Illinois, 18 on Saturday night against Alabama. And Zach Eady is the man that you would want to defend Klingon, who is 7-2. But it's not like Donovan Klingon's going to have 10 and 6 and consider it a good night. Those are the props for tonight's national championship game. Now to the guys that start the offense, Tristan Newton and Braden Smith. Newton for UConn does it all. Smith on the other side for Purdue, the same. If you're looking at Braden Smith, I would look at the rebounding number, a number he has gone over in 4 of 4 for Purdue here in the big dance.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch it play out, but also the counterparts that have it. UConn is great at every single position and can play any style and any tempo here. That's going to be hard to overcome. Purdue's going to have to really bring their A game tonight, even if they want to hang around. How crazy is that?